I am Diana Ruth Huddleston.
My name is Colby Frederick, and I attend the University of Oklahoma.
I graduated with a master's in rehabilitation counseling from Langston University.
I started with a CDA, it's a Child Development Credential from Washington, D.C. Then I went to University Central Oklahoma for about 4 years, taking part-time classes, and tried to finish off at Oklahoma State University in Oklahoma City.
I am studying drama with an emphasis in dramaturgy. So through dramaturgy, I do a lot of research and I do a lot of script analysis for directors and playwrights.
I've been in the field working with individuals with developmental disabilities for many years, probably about 16 years, and I saw an opportunity to enroll in the master's program at Langston and get a rehabilitation counseling degree.
I had the passion of create activities to broaden their horizons and learning the different stages of their development, so I went into child development.
Some have learning disabilities and some of them do not. Some individuals may require medication, some of them may not require medication. For those with more severe ADHD, then medication is required.
During the time I was working on my credential in child development, I was a vacation coordinator at the YMCA in Bethany, and they asked me to get a training in a medicated administration technician, and I finished that, received my certification there. So I had to document medicine, the people who had ADHD. I had one boy for 2 years that I documented his medication and gave him his medication, and I had 4 in one summer. They were similar. That was a very good question. They were really so similar. 2 out of the 4, it calmed them down. The other 2, it did not. They were still stimulated with the group. Well, dealing with the 2, it was only during like 9 to 5 during the camp hours, and they had to stay in the group, so there was really no opportunity to find their stimulation to calm them down.
10 years ago or so, there was a lot of controversy of overdiagnosis of ADHD and children being put on Ritalin where they may not need to be put on Ritalin and possibly some other meds. But currently, I don't think it's on the rise. It might have leveled out by now.
Yes, in its way, taking it out of ADHD, they're finding a lot of diversification of symptoms, where to divide the children of ADHD. In my era, it was. A lot of parents at that time felt like they just, if you give them a pill, it will cure them. Because of their active family life, working everyday routine. I believe that in this day and time, as the advanced studies goes, they don't necessarily have to give them a pill for everything.
The most common form of medication for ADHD is Adderall, and Adderall essentially it's comparable to smelling salts from the early 20th century, which were essentially a chemical that you would breathe in and it would act as a cognitive stimulant. And Adderall does the same thing, it's just a pill. So for people with ADHD, to my knowledge, it helps them focus. The unfortunate thing about Adderall and how easy it is to get Adderall is that a lot of people without ADHD and attention disorders tend to take it just because they can. It's almost recreational. And then with that, people do overdose because a lot of people that do it recreationally aren't very smart and they take the wrong amount.
I don't think it does.
As far as creativity is concerned, you have more attention to detail in the theater. So whether you're sitting down to write something, write a play or write some music, as far as acting is concerned, it helps you focus on something that can generally be kind of nerve-wracking when you're in a rehearsal room and you have to make choices very quickly, as rehearsal tends to be if you don't have a lot of time. Because the help of a cognitive stimulant like Adderall, it would make that process a little bit more easier if you do have those attention disorders. You get to focus in and you get to hone in on your creativity in a way that lets you act at to the best of your ability.
It depends on what type of ADHD they have. It's either a physical circumstance or a mental circumstance. This one boy that I had to give the medicine to, it helped physically to calm him and help him think and do the creativity. But on a personal family matter, it did not help, and it would cloud his judgment, cloud his focus, cloud his creativity.
But you do have people like Audra McDonald who have some attention disorders, and I can only guess that she didn't have an extreme case or else she probably would have been medicated. But I think the theater does attract a lot of people that have these attention problems, because theater acts as an outlet to where you can take all of that raw and kind of like crazy kinetic energy that you have about you and you get to focus it in on one task at a time. If it's acting, you get to focus in on one character who doesn't necessarily have those problems. And what's the definition of acting? It's living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. So if you're doing acting the right way, you're almost disassociating with your truth and you're taking on the truth of another person. So as far as performers with attention disorders, I think it's very common. I think that's why they go to performance in the first place. They have to express themselves.
If it would help my child focus better in school, learn to pay attention to his studies and what was going on around him or her, yes, I would.
No, at first, because I would want them to diagnose what kind of ADHD they have. With that, they could solve it, which way they could do it. And as a parent, I would determine which type of ADHD they'd have, and then go with that. I would go into more studies if I don't feel they can, if they want to all of a sudden put them on medication because of this experience that I've had with other children.
I think it would be treated specifically to that case. It falls on a spectrum of the severity, and I wouldn't be against medicating my child, but I'd also want to make sure that my child understands what's going on, understand what ADHD is, understand what Adderall does. I think that a lot of wonderful people from all sorts of backgrounds and mental facilities enter the theater and do a lot of great work. And I think one of the great things about the theater is that a lot of things like ADHD, whereas it may be a hindrance in another field, it's not so much in this one, because you can step away from it, or you can use it and it can spur you on to further your creativity.
And from my experience, some individuals that have extreme or severe ADHD, they may not be on medication, but in my opinion, they need to be, because when they're not on medication, then their attention span, their focus is, I don't want to say, it's harder. It's harder for them to pay attention and stay focused.